And we're back with another wonderful edition of the Cosmic Crossfire because it cannot be called Pop Talk.
Oh God!
You knew I was going to get that in there.
I thought you were gonna go on the pop culture cosmos. It's the Cosmic Crossfire.
No. Cosmic Crossfire will be right there. That's why I put a
Is
theme
it too
song.
hit? Is Cosmic Crossfire too hit for us? Is that the deal? Is
Yes.
that too edgy? Is that like too like new metal-ish?
Sounds like it. Sounds like it indeed. But once again, it's Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. I'm here along with my good friend. He is the director of Nintendo Quest, Missing Mom, and so many other documentaries, including Kitty, one on the power of Grayskull, as far as He-Man documentary, and so much more. Box art, my gosh, too numerous to mention, and possibly an even new project, including maybe some puppets or marionettes, but I'll let him go into more about that. And then also as well, he works with Tiny Titan Studios, $9.99 a month. Excuse me, for $9.99 you can
I
get
thought you
on
were gonna
Steam.
say I work for $9.99 a month.
No, not for $9.99. That's a little bit above your pay grade, my friend. No,
Okay.
no, just teasing. For $9.99 on Steam, you can get the awesome game Tiny Rails. Plus, also Tiny Rails is free to play, and Dash Quest is free to play on mobile as well. He is the man, the myth, the legend. It's Rob McCallum, who is actually should be paid more than $9.99 a month.
Well, that's nice. I don't know that I'll be hiring you anytime soon as my agent, just in case those wires get crossed. But nice to be back, and I want to give a shout out to everybody at Digital Dreams Entertainment as well. I've been working with them more recently, and they just launched Mutant Football League and early access on Steam today.
Indeed.
So
And then it's coming in October as far as a full-fledged game. Yes.
yeah, they believe that on PC and Steam it'll be released in full within about a month or so, and on consoles right around Super Bowl time, so January, February. Oh, I see Gerald with his Steam controller or his PlayStation 4 controller. There he is. There he
Just
is. Look.
giving that subtle hint out there as far as it's concerned. So,
Okay.
Truly great indeed to have you back on the Cosmic Crossfire. Just a lot of great pop culture topics to talk about, my friend. We've got 4 on the slate today, so
That's correct. You've peeked at my notes.
yes, I did. So have at it, my friend. What's on your mind when it comes to the world of pop culture?
Well, this week, like the last 4 or 5 weeks, there's been a big question as a through line, and I thought I would really surface it and make it explicit this week, and that's really looking at the value of something. So, and that's not always monetary. Sometimes it's the qualitative value, that impact that hits us, and what it does to resonate in the 4 topics that I've kind of got really, go back and forth around the pop culture spectrum. The first one, of course, you alluded to off the air before we started rolling. I didn't want to get into it too much. Is the new Atari box console? You're already rolling your eyes now. That I'm not sure which fact or stat that you're rolling your eyes about. I don't know if it's that you get Atari games prepackaged on this box. I don't know if that you're rolling your eyes the fact that it's a Linux-based OS. I don't know if you're rolling your eyes over the wood-grained features in terms of the actual physical construction. And I don't know if you're rolling your eyes over the $249 to $299 price point, or if you're rolling your eyes over the fact that they're launching on Indiegogo. Weigh in. What do you think? Why the eye rolls, Gerald?
It's that dollar sign, man. I'm telling you. Anybody who is trying to bring back retro, and we saw this with the Sega flashback system, and also as well we've seen this with the NES and the Super NES mini systems. You have to keep that price point under $100 to make sure it's attractive to everyone. Yes, I know it's a Linux-based system and you can mod it and do a lot of different things with it once you get your hands on it, but most people will just want to play it for the flashback and retro reasons for all the great Atari things that are going on, which I know if we watch Blade Runner 2049 coming up in a few days, that you'll get those reminders that Atari is everywhere. But I just think that price range is just ghastly for something that just harkens back to an era where $250 was the price of the actual system back in the day.
I just don't
That I own,
know.
by the way.
Well, the 2600. Yeah, yeah. I never had an Atari growing up. My uncle had it, and I got to play it when I would go visit his house. Jay, of course, had an Atari. First game I ever played was Spider-Man on the 2600. It's great. Um, I don't know that an Atari box with preloaded Atari games, even with HDMI out, has a value of $250 to me. Not when there's probably been so many flashback collections for GameCube or PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 and so on, or being able to download a lot of the new games, or even in the face of like a lot of these reimaginings of like Pac-Man Championship DX or Galaga DX and like these super HD versions of these classic games that now exist that are like really fun experiences, but are definitely not the Atari classics. So I just really don't know the value of, am I going to pay $250 for a Linux-based OS that's going to require me to do a bunch of stuff under the hood? When I buy a box, I want to plug it in and enjoy it instantly, less headaches. Nintendo for so long to get online was a massive headache, and everybody hated it. They finally seem to have sort of figured out the online presence. It's a lot easier. You can plug it in, you can enjoy it now. Sony and Microsoft have always had that super simple, easy step-by-step, get online, play your games, and enjoy it. I don't know if there's going to be an enjoyable kind of curve or an ease of entry to this Atari box. And I'm really questioning the value of a new console, or is it just a PC in a different kind of box?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is just so irritating to see that price point. It's just like, come on.
So
Last
okay,
week,
so let me ask you this.
and I'll tell you
Go ahead.
why. Last week I saw a Xbox One with 2 games, including Destiny 2 and a second controller for $249.99 as a deal. Okay, and if you really want to go and play those flashback games, get that bundle. Then go ahead and download the Atari flashback bundle or a Sega flashback bundle, which I believe are available on the Xbox One systems. It just makes absolutely no sense what they're doing. And if you think it's the Linux operation that's going to be like a catch-all so that more new games will be ported onto it, do you really think there's going to be a lot of quality games that'll be ported onto that system that wouldn't be ported onto more profitable systems and that are more popular?
Well, let me ask you this. What do they have? So we know that sometime this fall was the open-ended time frame that this is going to appear on Indiegogo, a crowdfunding platform, which we talked about crowdfunding last week. Has it hit a bubble? Is it stale? Is it ready to burst? Is it still going? What does the Atari box have to do and show you on Indiegogo to get your $250 or $300? First of all, the fact that there's a price point difference is interesting when they're this close to launch. Is there like a special edition or like an autographed or a special colored edition? Or like the wood grain edition is one, but a plastic version is another. What do they have to do to earn your $250 on their Indiegogo campaign?
Make it an arcade cabinet.
So you want an arcade cabinet to ship to you?
Yes, with an actual, HD TV. It could be just a 1080. I'm not a greedy man.
And you want them to ship
and then
you
2 controllers. And
so,
then
okay,
2
so
controllers with the buttons right there.
That'll cost you $300 for the arcade machine, but then it's going to be $1,200 shipping.
Well, you asked me what would be cool for, because there is really nothing that can justify making an Atari retro system $250 unless you're actually giving you the actual Atari code for each of those games itself. But even that doesn't make logistical sense.
Well, here's the thing.
You and I can go into Retro City Games right now. We can walk in, and what's one of the first displays that you see? One of the first.
Quest.
Well, that's true. We'll see the awesome. By the way, you can get it on DVD and many other outlets.
And Blu-ray at NintendoQuest.com.
Yes. But besides the Nintendo Quest DVD display, there is also a display of dozens of Atari cartridges that they sell at a great price of $5 for $10.
It's true.
So
I honestly think though, after reading a couple articles, that this is more than just some prepackaged Atari games. I think that's a given, but I think that there is more stuff that's coming on this. And I would really like to see them do something where, okay, it's $250, but it's kind of like a Netflix deal where they plan to have a bunch of content that's going to be on there, and it's more of a subscription that they offer you to get new games that have never been released, independent games that are coming exclusive to their box, maybe third-party games that are either on Steam, but now you can play them on the Atari box, in addition to, of course, the token Atari classics that you would expect to be on an Atari box. But I don't think for them to be successful that they can rely on just Atari classics. I think that has to represent like 3 to 5% of whatever their value proposition is.
but
They
that's
really
what
have to come out of the gate.
but that's what makes it that's what makes me afraid, because as we saw with the Sega flashback, if you take a look at it, or if you go to the retail stores where they're available and you walk in, you take a look back at it, the list of games that are on that, a lot of those games that were added, those special games, were just shovelware or were just basic games that were just throwaway, and actually helped bring down the critical view of those Sega flashback systems. I'm assuming that the Atari flashback system will do something similar to that with the Linux system, but unfortunately, instead of getting quality new games added to it, it will be nothing more than basic retreads that were hastily made. That's just filler as far as the original box that you get in the box.
Well, we don't know what we're getting, and this is it. We don't know what we're getting and in what kind, if it's just the original resolution, if it's an HD upgrade. There's been several different Sega and Genesis flashback consoles throughout the years. The most impressive version were the ones that would actually allow you to use Genesis cartridges still. Will the Atari box have a USB port to allow you to use your own Atari games? You know, that's going to be huge for collectors if that is the case, if it auto up converts those Atari carts and lets you use either a USB adapter to the controllers or not. That would be a massive kind of selling point. But I do think that they can only rely on 5% value if they're trying to capture the 2652 or 7800 collectors markets. And I say that from a point of understanding the video game kind of community, knowing where those collectors lie. And I've been to a lot of different shows, and the Atari market is nothing like the Nintendo market these days.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. It's very saturated.
There's a ton of product out there, and there is not a lot of fandom for it. It does not have like the Mario fan base or the Zelda fan base or any of these other franchises that really started at the Nintendo era and beyond. Sure, you have Pac-Man fans or
Asteroids or whatnot.
Asteroids or like I said, Spider-Man or any of these kind of like Yara's Revenge or something.
Pitfall or anything like that.
But those are usually single games, and you don't have a massive following. You don't have the franchises that kind of develop the way that they have, and have gone on to propagate many titles across many different systems. So it's niche, and the collector base that is really into it is getting older and older and older.
Well, so I will tell you this: as Blade Runner 2049, as I alluded to, the logo gets more love than any of the games that's attached to it.
That's true, and they still act as a publisher and a developer, Atari, depending on how you look at it. Like they put out a lot of mobile titles as a publisher, so they're still very active in the games. Yes, that's true.
Yes,
that's true. So I don't know if it's going to work. And this is the thing, right? Because it's just it's called the Atari box. Is it somebody that's leveraging the Atari branding, like the Coleco Chameleon? That's unfortunately what this reminds me of a little bit, which was, again, on Indiegogo. Tried to launch a Kickstarter, did not make it. Is this another Coleco Chameleon? We don't know.
I don't know, but I can't wait for the Commodore Cosmic Crossfire.
Yeah, there you go. The Commodore Cosmic Crossfire. Not this round. No C64 Crossfire edition.
Amiga.
Right. Okay, moving on. I had just seen a trailer earlier today for a new documentary on Steven Spielberg that's coming directly to HBO on October 7th. Simply titled Spielberg. It seems to have lots of interviews with A-listers, the legendary director himself talking about his process, revealing different anxieties and emotions about what it's like to make films, and it essentially looks like a walk through his career path from when he started as a student, the film schools he tried to get into, where he ended up going, and then how those films come out, which films affected him in different ways, all the way leading up to today. What is the value of a documentary on Spielberg at this point? I feel like if there's one filmmaker who gets a ton of press and a lot of attention and spotlight, it's probably Steven Spielberg. Do we really need a candy-coated, look how good this guy is, who kind of invented the blockbuster film, with a documentary? What's the value in a documentary on Spielberg?
Well, for you and I, not a whole lot, because we already know and appreciate a lot of the fine work that he's done over the years, and he's got so many titles and so many projects. If somebody were to try to even do like a breakdown, like a biopic film, they couldn't do it without any justice, because there's just too much ground to cover. And if doing a documentary is, like you said, it's just going to be almost like a roast where everybody just, cheers to him, great, great, great. You're going to see adulation for 2, 4 hours, whatnot, however long the documentary is, because we know how great he is, and we know what he means to modern cinema as a whole. And I'm sure so many of us have seen a great deal of his work to know how good he is. And to be reminded of it, it's like something we already just know for sure. And I don't know. I know his movie Ready Player One, it looks very strong. That's coming out next year. I'd love for him to fulfill one of his own wishes, and that is at some point in time before he retires, to helm a Bond film. That would be nice, because I know he's had a great desire to do so, as we've talked about before. But like I said, I don't have a need to go see a documentary on Spielberg, because we already know and appreciate just exactly how good he is.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Is like we already know so much about this guy and his career and his films. And maybe again, because we're on the other side of that coin, we're in the industry, we talk about this stuff, we think about this stuff, we analyze this stuff. But I don't know that there is much more to glean from this individual's career, or much more to say that hasn't already been said a million times in books or articles or specials or TV spots or other facets. Is this just like a glorified rewrapping of an updated, episode of Behind the Music, where we cover the band's like latest 2 albums that weren't covered in the first run of the show? Like I just don't know. I'm definitely gonna watch it because I'm a Spielberg fan. I'm a filmmaker. I don't expect to get a lot out of it. It's the kind of thing I'll probably put on in the background and wait for the right sound clip to catch my ears and then pay attention. I've seen all the movies that he's gonna talk about. I kind of understand. I don't need to hear DiCaprio talk about why he likes Raiders of the Lost Ark or anything like that. That's irrelevant to me. I love the films for my own reasons, but I don't see the intrinsic kind of analysis that I would love from someone like Spielberg to really walk me through what it's like to be him in a day, to watch him work and what his process is and why what he does is so special. That to me is the documentary that's more valuable. This is a glorified fluff piece, and it's not taking an interesting position.
What I'd like to see instead is maybe some of his older work, maybe retouched or maybe even redone, like Duel or Sugar.
You didn't say that.
Duel or Sugarland Express. Some of the early
1942.
stuff. Okay, some of the earlier stuff that I think is good. I don't know if you want, if you want to do 1942, that's up to you.
Enough about retouching things. Enough about adding. We talked about this when we were talking about Blade Runner and Close Encounters and E.T. and the way that people want to change these films. They're a product of their time,
or maybe just show them again to a larger audience in their original form. How about that?
Well, if they didn't stand the test of time, there's a reason for that.
Well, even his films like Close Encounters just got put across the screens. Same with E.T. They were shown. Yes, Close Encounters got a 4K update, which I'm not sure if you're in love with that aspect of it. But yeah, you're right. There's only a few select films of his that are actually embraced continuously. Films of my preference, such as Minority Report, which I think is a really, really good film from him and one of his very best. Those are the films I'd love to see highlighted more in his career.
Yeah, well, for me, there's lots of phases of Spielberg, and it usually goes decade by decade. There's the 70s stuff, the 80s stuff, the 90s, and kind of everything after. I think everything after The Lost World seems to be of the same kind of ilk, more or less. So that's how I kind of segregate his films. But
Or
we'll
Schindler's
see.
List. Schindler's List is also a great film that has been overlooked over the years as well.
I don't think it's really been overlooked. He won many Academy Awards for that,
Over
and
the
it really.
years, as far as do you ever see it being played, or as
Oh
far as
yeah, it's always being advertised on different movie networks and channels and stuff, and HBO, and it definitely gets a lot of love still.
Okay,
Lots of love.
I'm not seeing it, but okay, all right.
And there's definitely a ton of homages to it in lots of different films and parodies the play with color and black and white and whatnot. So maybe you're not seeing it. I see it. I keep an eye on all things that have to do with lists. I like lists. Lists are good. Schindler's List, grocery lists. Lists are important.
Fair enough.
Moving on to something that is somewhat related, and that's film festivals. It is film festival season. Usually it's fall, autumn. It's kind of like the awards kind of campaign starts. Season usually begins with the Toronto International Film Festival around Labor Day weekend. And then you get stuff like Fantastic Fest that's going on right now. And you basically build through all these other small little festivals right up until about the Golden Globes, which is kind of like, is that the signal for the chance of a film to win an Oscar or get that kind of prestige? Again, we're kind of in the biz, so we kind of understand it a little bit differently compared to other people. But what do you think the value of film festivals today is, Gerald? And of course, I've got an opinion on it as a guy and a filmmaker who's been through the festival circuit with different projects, and I've got certainly some opinions on it. But what do you think the value of film festivals? Is it just a glorified marketing campaign? Is it still a chance to break out? Doesn't matter. Who cares about this stuff?
Well, I think first off, you got to talk about how many film festivals there are out there. That's the problem in and of itself, is because there are so many film festivals that take place over the course of the year from Cannes on that it just becomes diluted. Now, Cannes is still special because of how much it's portrayed within the industry, but then there are so many others leading up to the Golden Globes that it's hard to ascertain a lot of times exactly how special these film festivals actually are. I know as a filmmaker that you still when called upon and when invited to, you still obviously see it as a great honor, as well you should. But to a regular member of the audience or regular member of the community out there that doesn't have a film project per se that would be impacted by it, or just a normal everyday viewing fan, they see it almost as a blur, and almost as what, those little marks that you see above these award-winning films during the commercials, that just another mark along the screen as far as award-winning film from such and such festival. I think it's a little bit too, like many things in our society, there's just too much of it, and the importance gets weighed down because of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a quality concern issue at hand here. Trying to decipher which festivals are worthwhile, which are the A-list festivals, the B, the C's, the D's. What does it actually mean? What do those marks actually mean? And I think the term mark is really interesting and appropriate for this stuff, because it is just, here's a little mark, another kind of box that's checked in terms of marketability, in terms of, hey, maybe pay a little bit extra attention to this because someone somewhere thought this was good enough for it to be noteworthy on some level. I do think film festivals are all about marketing, because it is about getting people to see these and exclusive kind of settings. Sometimes you can only see it at the festival because it's not in distribution yet. So you're marketing it to an audience. You're trying to get that reaction. You're trying to win an award at a film festival so that you can market the film better, so that you can get distribution, so that it can be more buzzworthy and, you know, have a greater value to the public because now somebody's interested in putting it out there. But with so many festivals and of festivals of different quality, man, and I've been to stuff where it's two people have been in the audience for some of the screenings. Filmmakers don't show up. They don't look at other people's films. They only show up for theirs if they can come, and then that's that. And I've seen other festivals where it's like completely community driven. Filmmakers might not show up, but like there's a like rowdy audience there that's like excited for whatever's coming at the screen, and they just love it and they live it up. So it can go either way. But who's to say what an award's worth, what a festival selection's worth? It certainly can be a racket on the filmmaker side to constantly put, you know, 50, 60, $100 to just apply to get into these festivals. And a lot of these festivals don't have cash prizes. They just have, you know, awards or laurels of accolade for your film, which just gives you the right to put it on your poster.
Am I wrong to say you got a tree once?
I did get a bonsai tree from the Forest City Film Festival last year for winning Best Documentary for Missing Mom.
So don't forget, you also can get, you know, foliage as well.
Foliage. And the ironic part is I couldn't take it with me because it was considered plants or animals, and I couldn't bring that across the border. So I had to leave that with my co-director, Jordan Morris, who said it was a constant headache trying to keep that thing alive.
Is it dead now?
Oh, it's been turned over to better greens people.
Okay, fair enough.
I think I think it was turned over to an arboretum that specialized in bonsais.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
But continue. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that out there.
No, I think that film festivals, by and large, for 90% of the public, are nothing but a pre-buzz marketing ploy for them to kind of start to pay attention to something before they have a chance to buy it or watch it, and as the case might be. I don't think they're really that important. It's just another marketing campaign that takes up a lot of time and a lot of effort. And
I remember with you and Missing Mom, because Missing Mom, you were talking about how many different film festivals and associations were granting this, as far as not as just a selection, but also an award for it as well.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for all the press and stuff that we got, because it was, you know, entered into festivals and we won awards in places all around the world, New Zealand and the Kiev and US and Canada, and that's very fantastic. But the whole idea behind doing that was simply to market the film and to give it a more perceived value than something that was just sitting on the shelf without it. That's the difference maker. And it was just like, nope, see, this film was worthwhile. Here's another festival it got into. Oh, look, it won an award. There you go. It's worthwhile. And sometimes with the smaller festivals, the only way that you can build value is by getting into so many festivals from so many different cities and showcase your value. Because if you just get into, I don't know, place in the Wichita Film Festival, no offense to people in Wichita, that's probably not up there with the Tribeca in terms of, you know, haute couture or whatever. It could be a great festival, but a distributor might not look at it the same way. But if you had Wichita and you had Spokane and you had Las Vegas and you had Reno and you had Lake Placid and Santa Monica and basically 10 smaller ones, well, that might show a lot of diversity and that the film is good enough because you're reaching a wider audience. And I think it's all about marketing. I don't know that the value in the long term, especially for these big films that are only and almost included just because it is part of the marketing campaign, I don't know what the value is for the audience to see them there. But I don't know. We'll see if independence and the importance of festivals come back around with the changing landscape of distribution or not. I think Netflix is really kind of changing that. And I know at one point Vimeo and Kickstarter were going to work together to do online festivals with stuff that was crowdfunded by Kickstarter to have exclusive streaming on Vimeo that was paid for as part of like a digital distribution deal. I don't know if that's going to be the case anymore, though.
Well, it also makes Vimeo more viable and effective as a competitor to YouTube, especially after they also announced that they're partnering up with a live streaming company to go ahead and now have that avenue as well, which is something long overdue for the network.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's shocking in some ways that Vimeo continues to stick around, but they are offering a lot of premium subscription models, and with their acquisition of VHX, they have a very prosumer or Apple vibe to them compared to YouTube, which is owned by Google, uncoincidentally. And Vimeo's compression rates are always better than YouTube's. I find it seems a lot clearer. It seems a lot cleaner. It's a lot easier to work with. You can keep the same URLs, but change the content in the background. There's a lot to like about Vimeo, so I'm really excited about what can happen with them. And if they can kind of get into the streaming distribution side of stuff, I think that's pretty cool. Last topic I want to talk about before we cut this short is Avatar 2 begins filming today.
Avatar 2, Avatar 3, Avatar 4, Avatar 5.
What is the value of this franchise, Gerald, and when will we be excited about it?
Avatar 6, Avatar 7, I don't know how many avatars. I'll tell you what, I think it's at least 4. The next 4 will be, it started production this week, but it's for the next 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're shooting 4 concurrently. They're basically shooting it like an ongoing mini-series where they're covering different scenes from all across all of them at the same time. And once it's done, each film will cost over $1 billion to make.
Unbelievable. And,
so
and that's
$4
really
billion is the price tag on this without marketing.
That's to me, that's insane, because really, when you come straight down to it, this is for a movie which, as you and I have spoken about in the past, has not left that cultural footprint with the fan base at all. It's just when it comes up now on FX, it's just another movie. I mean, it's nice that it's a Disney ride at Disney World, but it's going to end up just being another ride once Star Wars Lands come out. And to hedge your bets on something that, okay, people will go to the Avatar 2 as a curiosity to see where it ends up, but it's no longer the technological marvel at this point in time that it once was when it came out in, 2008, I believe, correct?
Yeah, it was, late 2008, early 2009, because the theatrical run was so long. Here's my prediction for it, okay? You remember how cool The Matrix was when it came out in 99? It was a really big film, and I think The Matrix still sticks with people today as one of those landmark experiences. There's a lot of technological stuff going on there. So
It does for me.
Parallels. You can see the parallels, but the storytelling was really top-notch in that film, too. Because it was really taking a look at that online-offline presence, which was just starting to come of age at the same time for people. I think you will see the Avatar franchise follow the unfortunate path of the Matrix franchise, where 2 and 3 did not live up to the first in any way, and then they tried to fill the gaps with stuff like the Animatrix, and they tried to put video games in there like Enter the Matrix, and no matter what they tried to do for that awesome potential that they created with the first film, they could never meet that mark again. And this is a film that worked on a story level, that did resonate, that also had the technological kind of staying power and prowess. Avatar's got the tech stuff on its side of its time, and presumably, given James Cameron's love of technology and his investments, there will be some really cool technology stuff that we'll see in this one. But will the storytelling, which is what matters most, impact us? He's essentially trying to make Star Wars, but his version of it, and hedging his bets by putting 4 new films out there so that people can get involved in that story.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know he's going to have new people introduced in the films or whatnot, Cliff Curtis, among others, but if you don't still have Stephen Lang, who's been talked about reprising his role in a major way, chewing up the scenery like he did in the original Avatar, which was the only reason I enjoyed Avatar at all was because of his performance.
Oh, I thought Sigourney Weaver was pretty great.
But I didn't think she was enough in there to really make an impact. I think Stephen Lang just was you just chew up every scene with his evil character that just loved wreaking havoc, and just his performance to me made that entire film. I understand that he is going to be revived, or he's going to live in some form or fashion within the next framework of the next film, and if that's the case, it could be something that helps make for a better story and a better narrative overall than the first Avatar, which, when we really break it down, is really not that outstanding, because I think people got seduced by all the colors and the animation and all that stuff, so they were willing to forgive some story elements. I don't think that will work the same time around, but we'll have to wait and see. And I've got another James Cameron thing for you after we're done with this one. So,
well, hit me with it, because who knows what myths or allegories or tales that he wants to do for the second, third, fourth, and fifth installments, and how well they weave together. There's nothing wrong with his essential, Pocahontas tale that is Avatar 1, which we've seen not only in Pocahontas but many other stories. It's classic for a reason. What other tales are we going to go into? So as a writer, I'm really curious about what he wants to do, and he's a talented writer. And then what does that also mean for the Terminator franchise?
That's just what I was going to say.
Okay, so, go ahead, hit me with it.
Well, he spoke of reviving the Terminator series and actually getting it back within his realm. So he's obviously, while he's dealing with the Avatar series, he's going to be overseeing, not directing, because that's going to be given to Tim Miller of Deadpool, but working back on a feature length James Cameron endorsed version of the Terminator series, where it's going to bypass the junk fest known as Terminator Genesis and deal straight with a new additional segment with, obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger back at the helm as a Terminator, whatever version, but also as well, he has announced that Linda Hamilton will reprise her role as well. So you're seeing how her character matures over a period of time and where that leads the entire situation. So I ask you, Rob, are you excited, or are you interested, intrigued in as far as this possible journey for the Terminator franchise, or are you just done with it after like I said, the junk fest of Terminator Genesis, and actually the Terminator movies prior to that, Terminator 3 and also Terminator Salvation were not exactly
I like Salvation. I've only seen Terminator 3 once, and I didn't hate it, but it didn't feel the same to me. But I did like Salvation for its take and setting of being set in like the Cybertronian kind of wars.
It's the one that made the most money of those three.
And I haven't seen Genesis, despite its availability on Netflix and all these other park and bin streaming channels. What I like that intrigues me the most is hearing Cameron talk about the importance of showing a female hero in her 50s or 60s still kicking ass, and having that female icon, which is interesting because Cameron came under fire for essentially attacking Patty Jenkins and Wonder Woman, and saying that Wonder Woman is essentially everything that is wrong with male-centric Hollywood, where basically you have a pretty woman who has to fight and kick ass, but make sure that she still always remains beautiful no matter what, in order to draw the attention and the gaze of the audience. So I think it's really interesting that he's criticizing Wonder Woman for all the accolades that it has and the money that it made, at the same time coming back and saying, no, we should be allowed to celebrate women heroes that are, older, that can still kick ass. And he's not afraid to, have a lead character that is outside that, 30 to 40-year-old kind of realm as a leading person. And I think that's why Disney got scared of having Mark Hamill be the main actor for episodes 7, 8, 9. They felt they needed younger actors to fit that 4-quadrant demographic of men and women below and above age 25.
But it also serves as Star Wars continuing that saga well beyond episode 9.
That's fine, but if this is the Skywalker saga, make those characters, make the stories about them, not about these other characters. Introduce them for sure, but do not tell the story from their perspective. I maintain that from episode 7, and I will maintain that going forward. I think it's a perspective mistake that Disney has made. It would likely get me fired from directing anything with them, but that's just my perspective.
I hear you. So does it intrigue you, at least a little bit as far as the new Terminator series and a new Terminator directed by Tim Miller?
I'm very intrigued by it, and I like this. I like this trend where producers like Cameron and Ridley Scott are comfortable enough hiring these filmmakers that they help pick, like Denis Villeneuve, a Quebec director, and Tim Miller of Deadpool fame, to trust them with the franchises in ways that the studios are not trusting of other ones like Disney and what we've seen with Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy. I feel like it's a little bit more personal for Cameron to say, no, I like Tim Miller, or Ridley Scott to say, no, like I like Denis Villeneuve.
Because they're endorsing it.
Yeah, exactly. They're almost like bringing them into their personal director system to take on this stuff. I'd love to see Cronenberg handle like a Terminator. I think that would be fantastic. Or one of these bigger sci-fi films. Give him the budget to do something like that, and I think that would be really great.
I agree with you as well. I think that would be an awesome choice. So, but then again, every time we see those directors that you and I, from more of maybe a critical eye, would say, well, that's a really neat choice. Like the guys from the Lego Movie. I thought that was actually really going to be an inspired choice for the Han Solo flick, but you saw what happened there, and then they went to a more traditional option. So
yeah, and that was just announced today on Hollywood Reporter or yesterday or so. So that's interesting. The follow up that they're doing. So they're certainly not out of work, and they've got a good track record. I didn't realize that they were producers on How I Met Your Mother, which I'm blasting through again on Netflix. A very funny show associated with them. So that's great. That does it though for this round of Cosmic Crossfire, Gerald. So thanks again for exploring the value of all these news items and reading between the headlines to figure out what they're actually worth.
Anytime, my friend. But I've got one more thing for you. You kind of announced last week, or kind of brought it back up, that you are in the process of deliberating. The McCallum mind is formulating a plan as far as trying to ascertain a good way to tell a narrative in regards to a documentary on puppetry. So tell me, that obviously not anything that's gonna spoil it out there for anyone or anything like that, but what are some of the aspects that you think that might make it appealing documentary on that subject?
Well, the puppet documentary is a concept that's been in the works for a couple of years now. Last year I had a poster commission because we thought we had nailed the concept, at least 60% of it, which is more than usually I go on. So it felt really good at the time to say, no, this is what the puppet documentary is going to be. And it was going to look at the encompassing history of puppetry and that form and medium and why it's alluring and has endured, and what the future is and its role with CGI and its status within storytelling. And then about in May, there was a great curveball and boomerang that was thrown at us with some of the people that we were talking to about who can be involved. And a better idea came out of it. And it was such a good idea that it completely displaced our original concept. So we're still looking at the history of puppetry and what it means, and how that form of telling stories with puppets and marionettes and shadows works and draws people in. But I think it's going to be a much more personal story with some key individuals and what they've done and what they've contributed to the art form, and to see how it's transformed their lives as well. And some very well-known people that have worked on some very well-known projects. So you'll kind of get to go behind the scenes a little bit for some of these landmark productions and shows and movies and places, and see how that magic gets put together, and the resulting impact of these people working together and what they work on.
Well, it's just awesome to see, still in a day and age where you and I we see every movie or TV show have some semblance of CGI and special effects and all this fancy computer stuff in the technological realm we live in. But yet kids these days, they can go to a local library or they can go to a local theater or even to a local fair, what have you, and still be entertained and laugh and enjoy a good time with just a simple puppet or marionette show that just warms the heart with a good story. So it's still, there's some still old values that still we can cling to, that still warm the heart every now and then. So it's kind of
Yeah,
good.
there's some interesting personification stuff in there that we want to look at. So, the puppet documentary, the title might change. The poster we put on Rob McCallum Films on Facebook. I was also shared on my Twitter today. Check it out when you can. We'll get a new poster soon once we solidify the concept. We're waiting for letters of agreement, basically saying that people will participate and be on it, and then we can take that to distributors and try to get a pre-sale or an advance. Failing that, we may look at a Kickstarter crowdfunding option at some point in the spring. So
That's awesome, especially after our conversation last week on Kickstarter.
yeah, well, this is something we have to evaluate. If the distribution offers aren't quite there, how much would we have to raise? And if we can't raise it, then we can't raise it, and that's kind of it. We'll see how it goes. So,
well, I wish you the best of luck and the entire team with that as well. So anything we can do to help, just let me know.
Cool, I appreciate it, and we'll do.
All right, my friend. And then once again, that is director Rob McCallum of Missing Mom, Nintendo Quest, and so many other projects. Kitty, The Power of Grayskull, the He-Man documentary, also as well, Box Art, the documentary, and so many others, and possibly even a puppet documentary as well. And then don't forget, Tiny Titan Studios, which he is a part of. They have Dash Quest and also as well Tiny Rails available right now for free on mobile, and also Tiny Rails is also easy to get, $9.99 on Steam. If you don't want to do any paywalls or anything like that, it's all right there for you as well. And you guys are always uploading DLC all the time, correct, with new content?
Yeah, there's a major Steam update that's going out very soon that introduces South America content and a whole new train station building mechanic, and requires you to buy rail to go from station to station and pick up the right kind of cargo and drop it off before you can build the stations. It's already rolled out on mobile. People are enjoying it. They love the story that's tied to it, which is tracking down the city of El Dorado and the cursed mask of El Dorado that goes hand in hand with it. So we have a lot of colorful, charming, pixelized characters, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in Tiny Rails these days, whether you want to play the free-to-play version on mobile, or like you said, take down all the ads, all the pay watching, all the pinch points, no timers, and play the Steam version kind of completely unlocked, access all the train cars, don't wait for those random drops.
And it's just $10. So what more do you need to know?
To
It's
travel
not
the entire world by pixelized retro train for $10 and collect hundreds of cars that make your train act and function differently. It's a pretty cool game.
And it's actually, like I said, just $10, the same amount of salary that Rob gets each and every month.
Each month. You buy one copy of that, I get to work for another month.
There you go. All right. Once again, that's director Rob McCallum. Rob, as always, we truly appreciate you being part of the Cosmic
Crossfire.
The Cosmic Crossfire. The Cosmic Crossfire.
The Cosmic Croissant.
There you go. Indeed. As always, my good friend, truly appreciated being part of the pop culture cosmos.